Scott Weaver for Factory Direct Designers Workroom. So I had an interesting email today, and the person wanted to know, how do I make the drapery panel a little narrower? Apparently she had purchased it online, and it's much bigger than her rod. And like most people would think, how do I go about cutting it down? She said she had it marked off to where she needs it. So she's probably thinking that she would probably cut off and re-sew it. And that would be one method of doing it. But maybe an easier method would be to take in each pleat. These are the pleats right here. And what I'd propose doing, instead of taking the whole panel apart, would be to change the pleating a little bit. And the way you would do that is, on your machine, you would put a zipper foot on your sewing machine and take the pleat, fold it like so, and you'll find that there's a stitch right here, right across here. That's what's holding the pleat. So now, just by changing that, by running a secondary stitch a 1/4 inch away from this one, you've now changed your panel size by 1/2 inch each pleat. Now, even if you took it in a 1/2 inch here, you're changing your panel size by an inch each pleat. I should say inch each space, rather. So what does that mean? Now, let's go back to the 1/4 inch. So let's say we take this, we put it on our sewing machine, and we stitch a 1/4 inches away from here. Well, what happens then is you've changed it. This right now has a 4 inch space in between. But if you take a 1/4 inch on this and a 1/4 inch on that, you've just changed that to a 1/2 inch less, so it'd be 3.5 inches. So you're picking up, you're taking away a 1/2 inch away. So this is how fast those numbers add up. You're taking a 1/2, 1 inch, 1.5 inches, 2 inches, 2.5 inches, 3 inches, 3.5 inches, 4 inches, 4.5 inches away from the panel, just by taking in a 1/4 inch. So if you're taking in a 1/2 inch, you're actually changing it to it by an inch. So that really picks up much faster in the name. So keep that in mind. If you're adjusting a panel, instead of cutting it off, you might be better off just going and stitching it down, each one, on your straight stitch machine. It's a 4 inch straight stitch, straight down. 1/4 inch, a 1/2 inch, just figure out how much you need. And just keep in mind, if you do a 1/4 inch stitch, that really means you're changing it by a 1/2 inch. If you're doing a 1/2 inch, it's 1 inch per every space that you're doing. So that's how you would calculate how much you're taking it in. I also want to bring out another point about doing this also. All that happens when a pinch pleated, and it's a traversing rod we're talking about, when a pinch pleated drapery is too wide, all that happens is when you're traversing it, on the opposite end, you may have an extra pleat, like so, stacked at the end. And that would not be on the leading edge, that would be the one that's closest to the return. So you may have 1 or 2 pleats actually stacked on the other end, and the rest of them would look like this. And that's not a tragedy if that happens. You're better off having a panel that's wider, that actually does open and close, than having one that's too narrow and doesn't quite shut all the way. So these are the determining factors. Now maybe you have to cut off a lot. You didn't really say in the email, but this is what I would say is the easiest way to do it. And it also makes your pleat a little fuller. If you don't have a real, nice pleat, by actually taking it in, you're actually making the pleat fuller. Now, once you've sewn that in, if it bothers you that there's still a stitch right here, then you can take a seam ripper, looks like this, one of these with a little sharp end, and you can start on a stitch and pull a stitch, pull it, and pull it, and pull it until you get it out. I still think this is going to be a faster way of doing it than actually, especially if it has lining on it, than actually cutting it down from the pleat, but which you certainly can do, but it would seem to be a lot more work than just taking in a little bit on each pleat. So I'm hoping this will help you with your project. Taking it in is much easier than letting them out. So when you're taking in a pleat, this is what it would look like. There's the original stitch right there. This is where I have my zipper foot right here, and in this point I'm just doing a 1/4 inch away, and then you would stitch it straight down. And you can see I have the fabric double. There is, so you want to be able to sew straight through both of these, and that makes the pleat larger and takes away from the space, makes this space smaller. So I just wanted to point that out. That's how you would have it on your sewing machine. I'll pull this up so you can see it. You can see that's you're sewing it right there through both sides of it, and that's what I'm talking about. When you change it from a 1/4 inch, you take it a 1/4 inch stitch, you're actually a 1/2 inch because you're stitching it through both sides of this. So you're holding it like that, putting it underneath your pressure foot like that, like so, and that's how you would make your panels a little narrower.